Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story serves up a juicy dose of petty perfection straight from the restaurant world. Grab a drink and get ready for a master class in subtle revenge. You're gonna love this one. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. A small win for servers everywhere. Years ago, I worked as a server in a restaurant in the US, and one particular evening still lives rent-free in my head as one of my finest moments. It was one of those shifts where you know the universe is about to hand you a golden opportunity for some justice. A group of 10 to 12 women walked in, clearly the ladies who brunch crowd, even though it was dinner time. You know the type, designer handbags, perfectly coiffed hair, and just enough Botox to make it impossible to tell if they were happy or irritated. For the most part, they were pleasant enough, albeit a bit entitled, except for one. Let's call her Karen, because, well, she was the Karen to end all Karens. From the moment she walked in, she was on a warpath. First, she snapped her fingers at the host, who was on the phone demanding attention. Then she complained about the lighting being too dim, the music being too loud, and the air conditioning being too cold. She even barked at one of her friends for sitting in her spot at the table. You could tell the rest of the group was used to her antics because they just rolled their eyes and apologized on her behalf. When I approached the table to introduce myself, she cut me off mid-sentence with, "We are here to be served, not to make friends." Oh, okay, got it. Gloves off. I started taking drink orders. They were ordering Cosmos, martinis, rosé, all the usual suspects. As part of restaurant policy, I asked for IDs for anyone ordering alcohol. This apparently made their night. They were absolutely living for it, showering me with compliments like, "Oh, you're too sweet," and "You just made my whole year." I kept it light and professional, making my way around the table, nodding and smiling as I checked each ID. And then I got to Karen. She ordered a Kettle One and soda with exactly 3 lemons, not 4. She even threw in a smug little smirk as she pulled her ID out of her wallet, clearly waiting for her moment to bask in the glow of being carded like her friends. But I wasn't about to let her have it. I glanced at her ID and immediately handed it back, saying with a polite but syrupy tone, "Oh no, that's okay. I don't need yours. You're good." The look on her face was priceless. Her smile froze mid-smirk, and you could see the exact moment the realization hit her. Meanwhile, the rest of the table erupted into laughter. One of them even said, "Oh my God, Karen, she just called you old." Karen tried to recover, muttering something about not needing validation anyway, but the damage was done. Her friends were giggling the entire night, and I caught more than a few playful jabs aimed in her direction. Later, I told my manager about it, and he laughed so hard he almost choked on his coffee. "You're not wrong," he said, shaking his head. "She's definitely good." For the rest of the night, Karen sat there stewing, occasionally glaring at me while I carried on, unbothered, with a smile on my face. It's been years since that shift, but every time I think about that moment, I can't help but grin. Sometimes the best revenge is just the tiniest, most perfectly timed jab. Ah, good times indeed. This is gold. Karen clearly strutted in thinking she was running the show, only to be dethroned in the most subtle yet savage way possible. You didn't just knock her off her high horse, you did it so gracefully that she couldn't even openly retaliate without looking worse. What really elevates the moment is the reaction of her friends. The fact that they couldn't stop laughing and joined in on the ribbing must have driven Karen absolutely nuts. Honestly, the "Oh no, you're good" line should be framed as the ultimate passive-aggressive mic drop in customer service history. And our next story. How Karen's petty antics led to her own eviction. I lived with my girlfriend and her 7-year-old son in a duplex on the side of a hill. The building was laid out in a somewhat awkward way. Both front doors were next to each other in the middle of the structure, sharing a small porch. Beneath the half of the building that wasn't ours sat both garages side by side. To get inside from the garages, a short sidewalk ran uphill, passing directly in front of the other unit before reaching our shared porch and the 2 doors. Because of the terrain, our unit was slightly above theirs, and though we shared the front porch, the property lines meant that the sidewalk and a portion of the yard in front of it were more on the neighbor's side than ours. Out back, there was a porch for each of us, divided by a simple partition to give a little privacy. When we first moved in, things were peaceful. For a while, the other half of the duplex stood empty, and we had no issues with anyone. My girlfriend's son would run around playing in the yard, we'd barbecue out back, wash our cars in front, and sometimes I'd tinker with my 2 motorcycles in the garage. It was quiet, calm, and everyone was happy. Then one day, a new neighbor moved into the other side. We hardly saw her at first, just glimpses through the window of a thin, older woman, probably in her mid to late 50s, and the unmistakable presence of cats. Lots of cats. We'd see their silhouettes in the windows and sometimes catch a glimpse of them peering out from behind the curtains. But for a good couple of weeks, there was no proper introduction. We went about our routines, and she went about hers. Finally, an encounter happened one warm, sunny afternoon. My girlfriend and I decided to wash our cars out front. Her son was with us, running through the spray of the hose and having a blast. I'd even rolled out my motorcycles, a 2001 V-Star and an '08 Vulcan Mean Streak, intending to give them a quick rinse. The hose wouldn't reach the driveway fully, so we were working partly on the grass and the sidewalk area that ran in front of the units. It was a pleasant family moment. Sunlight, laughter, water splashing, the kind of scene that might make a neighbor smile and say hello. Instead, as our new neighbor, let's call her Karen, arrived home and walked up from the garage to the porch, we cheerfully introduced ourselves and even joked that if she wanted, we'd wash her car too. But Karen immediately bristled. After barely acknowledging our introduction, she began ranting at us. She claimed that we had no right to be on her side of the yard, which apparently included the shared sidewalk and porch. She demanded that we must never step foot on that portion of the property again. She declared that we would have to walk around the back of the house to reach our own front door. A notion both ridiculous and impossible. Worse, she complained that she didn't like the noise of our garage door opener and insisted we stop using it, something that was clearly not going to happen. Her voice rose nearly to a scream, her finger jabbing the air, and her hostility frightened both my girlfriend and her son. The kid was near tears, and my girlfriend was livid. I had to usher them both inside to calm them down while Karen continued to rant outside. I'm a relatively easygoing guy, but Karen's unprovoked hostility had upset my family. After I'd managed to calm my girlfriend with a beer and a smoke and comfort her son with some ice cream, I decided that maybe Karen needed a taste of her own medicine. Her chief complaints had centered around noise and us using her sidewalk. Well, I couldn't exactly stop walking on the porch we shared, but I could certainly give her something to think about regarding noise. In the garage below her unit, the acoustics were perfect. Both of my motorcycles were carbureted, and it just so happened I hadn't adjusted them in a while. With my cars moved out of the way for space, I rolled my bikes side by side, their exhaust pipes aimed inward. I started with the V-Star, revving the engine loud, the roar echoing through the enclosed space and no doubt right up through her floors. I didn't hold back. I blipped the throttle repeatedly, making it scream, pretending to fiddle with the throttle body. After a few minutes of that, I shut it down and could hear her stomping overhead, yelling something I couldn't make out. Then I moved on to the Vulcan Mean Streak, which was even louder. Thanks to some customized baffles. I started it up and gave it several good hearty revs. The thunderous noise must have rattled her windows. Within a few moments, I could hear her muffled shrieks through the garage ceiling. Satisfied that I'd made my point, I shut down the bikes and rolled them back into place. We called our landlord, who we happened to be on friendly terms with, to give him our side of the story in case Karen complained. He actually laughed at my little tuning session, but politely asked me not to escalate further. That night, we could still hear Karen ranting, her voice cracking as if she might be crying in anger. It gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction to know she'd realize we weren't pushovers. A few days later, Karen tried a new tactic. One morning, I found her car parked in such a way that I couldn't get mine out. She'd intentionally blocked me in. I knocked on her door, called her name, but got no response. I ended up riding one of the motorcycles to work, weaving around her vehicle. That evening, her car was still there, so I parked my motorcycle behind her car on the street, blocking her in. If she wanted to be petty, I could match her. Instead of confronting me directly or moving her car first, Karen called the police. An officer arrived, listened to our childish back and forth, and instructed us both to knock it off. I admit it was immature, but this woman brought out the worst in me. Not long after, we had a quiet barbecue with some friends and our landlord on a neighbor's porch. We weren't loud, no music blaring, just chatting and grilling. Yet the cops arrived again, responding to a noise complaint supposedly filed by our landlord. The landlord was right there with us, rolling his eyes at her antics. The officer realized he'd been tricked and advised us to just keep things calm. Our landlord yelled through Karen's door, telling her that what she was doing was not cool. Over time, Karen kept trying to draw lines and make up rules. She tried building an unauthorized awning on her side of the back porch. Our lease clearly stated we couldn't alter the exterior without permission, and surely hers said the same. The landlord made her take it down, which must have infuriated her. Halloween rolled around and I decorated the yard. She demanded I move decorations off her side, so I shifted them. That night, I jokingly told every kid I saw that Karen had the best candy, just knock extra loud because she was hard of hearing. The poor kids who went to her door probably got an earful or nothing at all, but it was worth the image of Karen being pestered all night. The grand finale came when our kitchen pipe burst one evening. We shut off the main water line, affecting her side too. We left a polite note apologizing and saying it would be fixed soon. She came home and, ignoring the note, turned the water back on to give her cats a drink, flooding our unit further. My girlfriend screamed at her, neighbors came out to watch, then our landlord arrived mid-chaos, furious. By restarting the water, Karen had caused significant damage. He announced on the spot that he was evicting her and taking her deposit to cover repairs. Karen argued, threatened small claims court, but it was no use. The landlord hadn't signed her next lease renewal, and now he never would. She tried to claim she had nowhere else to go, that she needed her deposit back. He refused, telling her that the deposit would fix our soaked carpets and damaged floors. After months of petty battles, Karen lost the war in one catastrophic move. A couple weeks later, she was gone. The unit next door was empty. Her cats and clutter vanished. She didn't even say goodbye. Our duplex was peaceful again. It had cost us some stress, a few nights in a hotel while repairs were done, and a lot of exasperation. But in the end, Karen's antics only led to her own downfall. What a crazy story, OP. Karen looked determined to make your life miserable with unreasonable territory claims and daring rulemaking. Your motorbike tuning session was the ideal blend of petty and clever, a loud rumbling reminder that two can play. Her final eviction was sweeter because you handled her pranks with calm, humor, and the proper amount of resistance. You suffered months of her nonsense, but her failure to manage the repercussions doomed her. Enjoy your well-deserved peace. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.